Well, good evening, and thank you again for another night with the debates. Tonight's going to be a good night. Tonight we have the moderators first, and then we're going to go strictly to selectmen. My name is Brandon Hill. I am the moderator for tonight's debate. Thank you all for coming. I'd like to thank the candidates tonight, too, as well. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to ask a series of questions. We're going to keep it down to about 1.5 to 2 minutes at a minimum or a maximum. And to my right, we have Glenn Feldman. And then to my other right, I have Charlie Baker, who are both running for moderator. And I'm going to start with Glenn to give an opening statement, and followed by Glenn will be Charlie's opening statement, and then we'll get to a list of questions, and we'll go from there. So, again, my name is Brandon Hill, and this is Glenn Feldman. Go ahead, sir.
I would like to say thank you to our hosts, Brandon, Doreen, Jeff, and of course Tristan Faraway. And I'd also like to thank Mr. Charlie Baker for his many distinguished years of service as our moderator. Thank you, Charlie. I am joined here this afternoon by my lovely wife of 39 years, Sandy. She fully supports 49% of everything I say or do, and I look to her for guidance on the other 51%. I have been a town meeting member for 20 years, having missed only one meeting, to the best of my recollection in that time. I am also a member of the Auburn Planning Board and of the Auburn Republican Town Committee. A little history about me. In 1955, shortly after I was born, my mother became very ill, and my father had to place me in a foster home through the Children's Friend Society. And for 5 years, I lived with the Jansen family at 133 Wallace Ave here in Auburn. I have such great memories of Auburn back then. Many years later, my wife and I moved to, my wife and I moved to Auburn, to a house about 1 mile from Wallace Ave. And we have been there for 38 years, once again making so many wonderful memories. I remember a time 10, 15, or 20 years ago when we had a very high-quality town meeting experience. Mr. Baker set a very high standard of excellence, and my job as our new town moderator would be to return us to that gold standard. When I become moderator, I will read aloud all of the articles as they come before town meeting, and when it comes to proper procedure, we will go right by the book, without exception, every time. I believe 2024 is a great time to change moderators here in Auburn, and if elected, I promise to lead town moderator to a better overall experience, and as I do in everything, I will give it 100%. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. And Mr. Baker.
Yeah, I came to Auburn in the 1960s. I taught at Holy Cross, and I'm still there. And I originally got into town government by becoming a town meeting member. And then I was chair of a charter commission. And then I ran for selectman. I had 3 terms as selectman, was chair for a couple of years. And then I sort of dropped out of town government. But then, I don't know, maybe 30 or so years ago, I decided I wanted to get back into town government, and there was a need for a moderator. 2 of us ran, and I was chosen as moderator. And then I stayed as moderator until I left the position, figuring somebody else would take over. But what happened with, unfortunately, Chet Stencil's health, I was a town meeting member. Town meeting kept putting me up to be moderator again. So I figured, why not run again? And that's what I did, and that's what I'm doing now. And it's something I enjoy. And I think the moderatorship is a very important position because it's at town meeting that we pass the budgets, and the budgets are where our taxes come from. And so what I have to try and do is make sure the town meeting runs well. And I was talking to somebody who had previously been a town meeting member a couple of days ago, and this person reminded me of the days when town meeting would go for 3 days. And even if it didn't go for 3 days, it never got over before midnight. And sometimes it had to be, we had town meeting after midnight. Since I've been moderator, if we start on time, and sometimes we're a little late, I don't think we've gone beyond 8:30 yet, and I certainly wouldn't want to see us do that. You don't have to do it. What I try and do is make sure that everybody has a chance to speak, make their opinions heard, and then we vote. And that's what I'll continue to do if you continue to elect me as moderator.
All right, thank you, Mr. Baker. All right, so our first question of the evening to you, Glenn, and Mr. Baker. We'll start with Glenn first. Why are you running for town moderator?
Thank you, Brandon. I am running for moderator simply because I love town meeting and the elected representative style of town meeting that we use. With my experience at town meeting and with my skill set, I will work to upgrade what we have for the ultimate benefit of town meeting and the town.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Baker.
Yeah, I'm running for town meeting moderator, I guess, because I enjoy moderating the meetings. I've been doing it now, and I enjoy it. And I think that actually it's an important position. And so I try to make sure that people are recognized, that if they have questions, their questions get answered. We get everything done in a way that people know why they're voting on things. And as a result, as far as I'm concerned, since I've been running town meeting's been running very well, and I don't see any reason why it won't continue, if I continue to be elected, why it won't continue to run well. I certainly don't want to go back to the days when we had 3-day town meetings. I can remember one time that happened, and I was on the Board of Selectmen, and we were trying to figure out what to do about an ambulance. 3 nights, and every one of the nights I was the one who had to talk about the ambulance. I got the same question 3 nights in a row.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, so what are your I'm going to combine these two because I think we've kind of answered them already, but what are your main priorities if elected, and how do you plan to ensure that the town meetings will run efficiently and effectively while still allowing for meaningful discussion and debate on the article? Go ahead, Mr. Baker, you first.
Well, actually, the whole purpose of town meeting is to allow the town meeting members to ask questions and get answers. And it's through their questions and answers that people decide what they want to do on a given article. And when all of those questions are asked and all those answers are given, and we then move on to the vote, then we're going to be voting on things that, as I said earlier, are probably going to affect how we pay taxes, because our budgets and all the articles that require money are going to be there at town meeting. And that's what I try to do, is make sure that everybody who wants to be heard can be heard.
Excellent. All right, thank you. Glenn?
Thank you. My number one priority would be to work hard to do everything I can to be a really good moderator. My second priority would be to make sure that everyone in town knows exactly what the moderator does. So many times we get questions about exactly what the moderator does. If the moderator properly proceeds within the boundaries set up in town meeting time, the process will follow suit. For example, moving the question, which means to send an article to a vote, is a tool that is used by many town meeting members to keep the debate from getting bogged down.
All right, fair enough. All right, thank you, gentlemen. All right, next question. Can you describe your approach to presiding over town meetings and maintaining order during discussions and voting? Glenn, I'll start with you first.
Okay. When I am at the podium, you will have someone who is lucid, who sees the whole room, and who will act swiftly and lay down the law if need be. However, our town meeting members never get out of control. They get passionate about the issues, but they never step over that line.
Mr. Baker, same question. Can you describe your approach to presiding over town meetings and maintaining order during discussions and voting?
Yeah, well, I think the thing is to keep an eye out on the town meeting members, make sure as best I can, sometimes lights are a problem, to make sure as best I can that anybody who wishes to be heard can be heard, that questions can be asked. And if questions are asked, then obviously they have to be answered. And it's on the basis of those answers that people will then decide how they're going to vote on whatever the article may be. And this is, as far as I'm concerned, as long as I'm moderator, I will make sure that questions are asked, questions are answered, and votes are taken.
All right, thank you. Next question for both of you. All right. Describe your approach on conducting pre-town meetings and orienting newly elected town meeting members on their roles and responsibilities of being a town meeting member. We'll start with you, Charlie. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I really don't think the moderator has anything to do with pre-town meeting. The purpose of pre-town meeting is for town officials to come and meet with the members of town meeting and to explain what their articles may be. For example, we've been talking about a fire station and so forth. Well, if there's an article to build a fire station, then the fire chief would have to be there, would have to be answering the questions, and by getting those questions answered ahead of time, that would probably mean that some of those questions would not have to be asked again at town meeting.
All right, fair enough. And Glenn, same question.
Yes, I would make myself available for pre-town meetings if I was asked, but as of right now, I don't believe that the town moderator participates in those. We could set up a welcoming package for new town meeting members, something that which has never happened before, and I think that would work well.
All right, great, thank you. All right, next question. As you may know, many of our town meeting members are longtime serving town meeting members. How, if at all, do you plan to provide ongoing training and support to town meeting members to enhance their understanding of town meeting procedures and issues? Glenn?
Yes. At least 50% of our town meeting members have been with us for many, many years. Some of them are actually more qualified or as qualified as Charlie and I to be moderator. And, but they choose to not run. The best way to support this group of people is to elect someone as moderator who can lead them into the future, and I believe that that person is me.
Okay. Mr. Baker, I'm going to read the question again. So as we may know, many of our town meeting members are longtime town meeting members serving. How, if at all, do you plan to provide ongoing training and support to town meeting members to enhance their understanding of town meeting procedures and issues?
Yeah, well, I'm always available. People call me at times on the phone, or people will speak to me if they see me, in town, if there's a question to do with town meeting, and I'm always happy to answer any questions that may arise. And one of the things that I think we should all realize is because, as it's already been said, many of the town meeting members have been there for a long time, we have a bunch of very knowledgeable town meeting members, and in most cases, they don't need to have a lot of information coming from the moderator, but at times there'll be something to do with a question that I feel that maybe I have to give some kind of explanation to. And for those who've watched town meeting recently, for a while there we were having articles dealing with animals, like the dolphin in my swimming pool or whatever, right? And so questions arose, well, this is what we've done, can we continue to do this? And it seemed to get on, it went on, and I knew it was going to take time, so what I did do, it was at the end of the meeting. And I asked that some town meeting member would please make a motion to move those articles up so that they would come right after the budget, and we didn't have to deal with things like the dolphin in my swimming pool at 10 at night. And it worked.
Awesome, thank you so much. All right, and Moving on to the most final question of tonight for the moderators. Is there a question you wish that we had asked that you would have had an opportunity to answer or see a fellow candidate have to answer? And what is your message to our voters? Glenn, I'll start with you.
Mr. Baker, 2 years ago, I stood at your front door, told you I was running for town moderator, and I offered you the opportunity to mentor me so that I could become a great town moderator. So my question is, if I am fortunate enough to win, can I come to your house and learn something from you?
I don't know, actually. Hard question to answer. I'm planning to
Thank
win
you.
if the voters vote for me. But if they don't, well, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, I guess I'd be back being a town meeting member again, and we could then find out what I need to do.
All right, thank you. Same thing for you, Mr. Baker. Is there, again, was there a question that you wish that we would have asked? And then what is your final message to the voters before the upcoming election?
No, I think actually the questions were very good. I mean, they cover most of the situations that come up at town meeting, and if somebody's here or if somebody watching this on television, they certainly, I think, are getting an idea of what at least I try to do as moderator, and what I will, if voters continue to elect me, what I will continue to try and do as moderator.
All right, thank you very much. All right, gentlemen, thank you very, very much for being here tonight. We wish you the best in the upcoming election, and that's pretty much it for moderators. So thank you, everybody, for coming and listening, and we're going to take a quick break real quick. Next is going to be the selectmen debate, and we'll go from there. All right?
Thank you.
Wish you the best, guys. Thank you. All right.
No, not at all, not at all.
Sorry, because most of these were printed twice, so.
I'll see you at town meeting next
Oh,
Thursday.
what, you think you'll be there? I think I will too.
Okay. Selectmen, where are our selectmen?
Oh, yeah. Have any notes or anything? I was impressed.
Yeah, no, that was great. I enjoyed it. I've never met him before in my life.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was the first time.
I've been watching for 20 years.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
so I'm wondering if they're...
Yeah. All right.
I'm not sure that I have.
Oops. You had your hand up, and I apologize. Yeah, no, we're strictly focused on the questions that are here. I don't have it. I thought I did. Good evening, everyone. We are waiting for one more candidate due to timing. Timing got mixed up, so he should be here hopefully within the next 20 minutes, so we're going to take a break till then. I apologize for this. This was unforeseen, but he will be here. And just hang tight, we'll be back. Thank you. All right, welcome back, everybody, and sorry about the delay. We're all here tonight, so we're ready for the Selectmen's debate. Again, my name is Brandon Hill. I'm also a town meeting member, too. I never introduced myself as that. So we do have, to my right, Danny Largess and Mr. Dan Carpenter. All right, and we do have a statement from Sarah Ruffley. She unfortunately could not make it tonight, so I am going to read her statement, and then we'll get on with the questions. I also have Doreen Goodrich, and Jeff, I'm sorry for missing your last name.
McElroy.
McElroy.
Thank you.
They're the ones who are going to be reading the questions to our selectmen candidates, and we'll go from there, all right? So here's a statement from Sarah. I'm sorry that I was not able to attend in person this afternoon. I appreciate and thank the moderator and sponsors for allowing me to provide a statement. My name is Sarah Ruffley. I have been an Auburn resident for over 14 years. I have worked for the University of Massachusetts for 10 years. I also serve as the Auburn Middle School Rockets Club president for over 4 years. ARC Junior is the middle school's version of the PTO. I work with the middle school administration and teachers to provide additional funding for student activities. I have served on the select board since May of 2021. Being on the select board has provided me with the opportunity to understand how the town operates and, and has given me insight in the day-to-day operations of our town. With that in mind, I would like to extend my most sincere gratitude to the many town employees, department heads, and volunteers who act quietly and selflessly for the betterment of our community. These are some of the reasons that my husband and I chose Auburn to raise our family. As select board member, I have been called upon to make many important decisions on behalf of our community. In my second year on the board, I was voted to the vice chair position. And this past May, I was voted to be the chair of the board by my fellow select board members. It has been an honor to serve in that role. I have tried to provide opportunities for all the public to have their voice heard at the board meetings. We all call Auburn home and want to see our community achieve its best if reelected. I will continue working to advocate for the residents and businesses. If anyone has specific questions, I would be happy to discuss. Please reach out to me at Ruffy, that's SRUFI @town.auburn.ma.us. Thank you, Sarah Ruffley. All right, and again, I'd like to introduce Doreen Goodrich and Jeff McElwain. They're going to be providing the questions to our candidates tonight, and again, we're going to keep it down to about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes or so, and we're going to go from there. So, further ado, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we're going to ask you a series of questions, with each of you having the same opportunity to respond to all questions. We'll start off with the most basic question, hoping that you'll feel at ease, and move on from there. We ask that you remain respectful of the rules set forth tonight and respectful of your fellow candidates. So, the first softball question. Why are you running for a seat on the select board? And we'll start with person closest to my right, which would be Danny.
All righty. Well, thank you very much, Doreen. Thank you for coming, and Jeff and Mr. Hill. It's great to be sitting next to the legend, Mr. Carpenter. I am running because I would like to continue serving the town in a different manner. I've been volunteering for 20-plus years on the emergency response team. I volunteered through Auburn Youth, Elder Services, and I just like to take the next step forward. I've been a town meeting member for 14 years, and that's about it. I love the town. I'm third generation here, and it's a great place to live, and that's about it. Thank you.
Mr. Carpenter?
Thank you to the committees, both Democrat and Republican, for co-hosting this. I think that's a great thing. When I first ran for office in 1996, this was a normal thing that both groups did that. So I'm glad that we've gotten back as a community to sharing this type of event, because it is so important for the voters to know who's running for office and why they're running for office. I've served in a lot of different positions. I certainly don't want to mention every single one, but I've served as an elected member of the Planning Board for 11 years, served as chair of the Economic Development Committee, I've served as a Conservation Commissioner, I have also served in town meeting, and for the last 10 years, you, the voters, have given me the honor of serving as a member of the Select Board. Why am I running? Very simply, I don't know how not to run, seemingly. I love Auburn. It's very hard for me to explain all of the ways that Auburn resonates with me, but basically the general thrust is I want to give back. I'm a product of the Auburn school system. I've had so many people in this community do something wonderful for me and my family, and I've been trying for 28 years to catch up. I'm still very far behind, but I hope if you give me another chance to serve for 3 years, I'll get just a little bit closer to repaying the debt that I owe all the people who have touched me in my family's life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Another question, and I'll start with you as well. What are your main priorities if elected?
Well, the main priorities I have is, obviously, we want to maintain services in town. It's going to be very difficult. The town manager will tell you that, where, the state is not doing as well as we would like, and we've enjoyed so many years where the state has been able to help us shoulder the burden, and now we're kind of in that uncomfortable space again where we're going to have to ask the voters to give a little more. And that's never something that we ask lightly, but it is something we do have to ask. Something that I'm very keen on, we've had 3 40B developments in the last few years. We do not have a policy as a board or as a community for what most of these developers want, which is a local initiative petition. We have not gotten that done. It is something that I think, both from the developer's standpoint, the resident standpoint, and the town's standpoint, with staff and board members, so that we understand and we know and have the right information. Also, the small business tax credit, which actually is something that a prior Board of Selectmen did around the turn of the 20th century. George Jewell and many others got the state legislature to pass that. It's a good exemption, but it needs to be refined. It's too narrow. So I'd like to see the board work on that, and all 5 of us have said that that's something we want to do. We also need to expand the exemptions for our seniors and veterans. Our taxes have gotten doubled, more than doubled, since I was elected, which is not a comfortable thing to say. And I want to make sure that those of us who are most vulnerable and those who have served us well and in very difficult situations, that we're repaying that and making sure that they can continue to live in our community, because they have made it the community that it is.
Thank you. You've actually preempted a bunch of questions we'll be asking later, so. But thank you. And Mr. Largess, the same question to you. What are your main priorities if elected?
Well, I'd like to work with the board, learn, get educated, make honest decisions that I feel that is the best interest in the town residents. Unlike Mr. Carpenter, I don't have the experience, but I'm sure if on his first year of in the chair, he lacked some of the experience and learned from other board members. And that's what I hope to do, and I hope to work with the board to help keep Auburn great. Auburn is a great town. I grew up here. I plan on living here the rest of my life. That's about it.
Thank you. These next questions are going to deal with your vision of the town. So I think we're with you, Mr. Largess. With the ongoing development in Auburn, there's concern amongst residents that the town is losing its small town charm. What strategies do you propose to manage growth effectively while preserving Auburn's identity as a small, close-knit community?
I would like to see more small businesses come into town. Myself, I've already contacted a couple businesses. I try to meet with the mall manager every now and then and find out how the mall's doing. The biggest discussion when I've been out door knocking is the mall. Unfortunately, Sears will not relinquish their contract until next year. So it's kind of kill us, but I think we need more businesses in town so the people shop here. I mean, Amazon is killing the town because it's putting our small businesses out. And I really think that's what we need. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carpenter, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, thank you for the question. I know this has come up in previous election cycles as well, and something that we did try to do with the master plan, this would be the master plan of 2006, was revisit the landscaping bylaws. I think a lot of our commercial community, you see pavement, you see building, you see light standards. I think as the town is invested in Drury Square and try to create a small town feel, we need to incentivize business to do the same, to add more green space, not to block the building. Many, many communities do it and can do it in a way that softens these different pavement and building heights. You can do it, and you can do it economically. And I think that would work to recapture some of the feelings that people, especially older residents who know Auburn before the Auburn Mall, who knew our town in a very different way before 12 and 20 were what they were. So I think we could certainly look at that bylaw and ask the zoning committee to see if there's anything we can do about that. But I think that's going to help create those commercial communities, which are small, and give them some scale and make it look less like a city and more like a town development.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
And you addressed this a little bit in your previous answer, but we'll get into it more specifically. There are also some concerns among residents of urbanization encroaching on Auburn, particularly with Worcester expanding and growing. Do you have specific zoning or land use policies you would advocate for with regard to urbanization, for instance, to protect the remaining wooded areas, green spaces in the town, and just also with the increasing demand for housing and commercial development, how would you balance the need for economic growth or, with the preservation of habitats and specifically, et cetera, I should say?
So I ran 28 years ago for the planning board. This is a great question for the planning board. It's not something the Board of Selectmen typically deals with zoning. We have not expanded our commercial districts. We do have and have had since I was born 51 years ago, the commercial districts we have. We have 17% of our town zoned commercially. If you look at the other communities around us, they don't even touch a glove. We have aggressively zoned our community for commercial development in an effort to assist the residents with their tax bills so that they're not getting taxed out of it. And I think it's worked well for a long time, but now we see, as Mr. Largess points out, some of our businesses are struggling. And they're struggling because of issues that are not locally created necessarily. They're state and national issues, as well as changing tastes. But specifically to zoning, obviously we have done a lot of things. Recently we've redone, and with town meeting's blessing, we've got the village district. We've raised the height to 80 feet. We have done certain things as a community to try and attract businesses of various sizes and dimensions so I would say that we just need to start working aggressively to remind people that we're in the center of the state. We have the best connections of anywhere, and we also have a staff that works extra hard. We have infrastructure that the other communities around us would love to have, and you know, we support business, and we always have been a business-friendly community to that regard. We were the first community to do sewage as a town project. The town of Oxford has no sewage today in the 21st century. So we have the ability to compete with other areas in the state. We're an attractive location. We've got a great workforce. We've got a strong team at the town level as well as at the state and federal level to help bring in federal dollars to support upgrades if they are needed. And I think we just need to play to our strengths and continue to work in that regard, to be a positive and welcoming community, which I know we have been and we will continue to be.
Thank you. Danny, same question with regard to urbanization?
I think Mr. Carpenter took most of the answers.
Fair enough.
No, I think that we really do have to play out to the businesses and welcome them into town. Again, we can welcome all the businesses we want, but if people are going through Amazon and other businesses like that, we're not going to have anything. And then everybody's going to go, where did the businesses go? Well, we drove them out. We need to promote local town businesses. As far as, you know, making it look small in the town. Housing, let's keep the housing, you know, country-style housing instead of giant brick buildings. You drive down Pinehurst Ave and those new housings over there look beautiful. They have a nice 2-3-story country-style housing. It's not like a giant brick building that was dropped in. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, and it will go to Mr. Largess first. How do you intend to position on the proposed construction of the new fire station, and what factors will influence your decision?
Well, first of all, I think we need to see a plan before you can actually answer the question. There is no plan yet, and we haven't seen a cost. We did purchase the property at former Chuck's Steakhouse. It's sad to see them retire, but they enjoy it, hopefully. I think the major cost and how we're going to do it, and seeing if we can get some state reimbursements, grants. But that's about it. We do need it. I'm not going to say we don't need it. It's just how we're going to figure out to pay for it. I can't just go out and buy a brand-new car and go, oh, crap, how am I going to pay for this? You know, we have to figure out how we're going to pay for it first before we do it. But before we can even do that, we need the plans and we're going to need the cost. Working with the fire department on CERT, you see them, we know who the firefighters are, and yeah, we definitely need it. But let's figure out plans and costs and how we're going to do it. Thank you.
Do you need the question? No,
Thank you.
thank you.
So I think a big step in the right direction, the Board of Selectmen last year, we decoupled. Originally, the proposal was for a public safety complex. The police department bowed out, saying this is going to be too much for the taxpayers. And, you know, the biggest thing that we need is the Federal Reserve to lower the interest rate and lower it now, because literally that project was a $47 million project, and with borrowing, because of the excessive increases from the Fed, went up to $125 million. So we definitely need to make sure that when we're going into this project, that we're wide-eyed and we're aware of what we're being asked. We also need to make sure that, you know, I was on the planning board when the quote-unquote new police station was being built for $2 million. And now, 20 years later, we're looking at building another one. Well, we, A, don't have the land to do that, and B, that's not a good use of public resources to constantly having to be building buildings every 20 years. We have to make sure that this building is going to last, that it's well-maintained, and that, you know, that's going to be my priority, is to make sure that when we bring this to the voters, and it will be a decision of the voters, and that's how it should be. That's going to be my answer for anything. If we're going to borrow $5 million, $10 million, $30 million, the voters, it's your money. It's not my money. We need you to weigh in. We need to give you the information so that you can make the decision. So really, the important person in this conversation is the people watching this at home and in the audience. What are you going to do when this comes before you? Did we give you the right information? Did we do our job to at least provide you what you need to make an informed decision? And I have to say, the fire department and the police department did a phenomenal job in outreaching to the residents. They did any number of walkthroughs of those buildings. Anybody who's walked through that building, either one, I mean, I used to have lunch at West Street, Auburn. You know, it's a cafeteria. It was never intended. When Roger Belhumeur asked us to do that as a community in 1985, it was a stopgap measure. Instead, it became the measure. So we can't stop doing things because we're afraid. We have to plan aggressively for the future, and we have to give, you know, the staff the ability. 1964 was not that long ago, but as far as how we run a fire service, very different. And it's more of a medical service than it is a fire service. If you look at their runs, they're constantly doing medical things. We need to make sure that as we age, that those facilities are in place so that they can deliver and provide the life-saving care that they're doing today, only better.
Thank you. All right, so again, we'll keep the back and forth in the same cadence. So Mr. Carpenter, obviously, you know, you've talked about taxes and things. Obviously, you know, people of our town and the businesses as well are, you know, subject to issues with the economy, particularly rising inflation, as we're all aware of. On the other side of the coin, do you see opportunities for cost-saving measures in the town budget, and how would you propose implementing them?
Yeah, so it's interesting because when we changed the charter, we made the Board of Selectmen, we neutered them from really the budget process. We basically send it to the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee has their hearings, they meet with everybody, and then it goes to town meeting. And town meeting is really the most powerful body in the entire town. If they don't like the budget, they can rip it up, and I've seen it done. So the big thing is, a few years ago, with the former town manager, Mrs. Jacobson, I had said, you know, we're spending a lot of time on paper. They're still doing paper in the 21st century, time cards. Well, first of all, from an auditing perspective, there's no way for me to tell whether you walked in at 6 o'clock or you walked in at 8 o'clock. But if you're punching in, I definitely know that you at least showed up to punch in. I can't say that you were there from 8 to 5, but I can at least know that you were in the building or someone was in the building swiping your card. So we finally are moving to that. So we need to start looking at ways that we can use automation and technology to reduce the administrative burden that a lot of these processes do. I mean, we have over 700 employees. Imagine on a Tuesday morning having to chase all of that every week. I mean, that's not efficient, it's not effective, it's not cost effective. So we need to be doing that. We need to be looking for opportunities where we can provide service to the residents on demand, as well as, but we still need humans. You know, it's great to automate something, but if you don't know or it's not working, just staring at a screen isn't going to help you. So we need to balance the need for some automation and some efficiencies in our system, which, you know, the manager is doing, which I'm very proud to say that he is doing that. That's what we need to do.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Largess, ideas for cost-saving measures and how you might implement them.
Well, I think as Mr. Carpenter said, I think we need to really look at everything and go through the budgets and just look at the bottom lines of everything. What do we need? What do we want? What do we wish for? It's not the town's money. It's the residents' money, and we have to choose wisely. So, you know, we just have to watch everything. I'm not going to say penny pinch, but we need to watch. There has to be a countership for everything. So, thank you.
Thank you.
So this should probably be 2 questions, but I'm going to read it like it is, and you can take it from there. How do you plan to engage with residents and solicit their input on critical issues facing the town, such as infrastructure projects and public policy decisions? And what would your approach be in regards to 40B projects? You first, Mr. Largess.
Okay. Well, I do what I've been doing for the last 2.5 weeks. I'm gonna walk up, knock on your door, and I wanna know. If it takes people to come up to the town hall and talk to me, if it takes for them to call me on the phone and talk to me, I wanna know their input. I wanna know what they feel. I wanna know what they think about the taxes, the water, how everything is going in the town. A lot of residents have been asking, again, with the mall. You know, I think if the mall went out and dressed up the front of it and made it look a little better than just wild shrubs growing along the waterway, I think it would look a lot better. But what was the part about the 40B?
What would your approach be with regard to 40B projects?
Let's make it clear. 40B is not, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not housing that, to me, is affordable. They say it's affordable. $2,000 for a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, I think it's $2,200, and a 3-bedroom's pushing like $2,900. That's not affordable. If that was affordable, people would be going out and getting mortgages and buying houses. Granted, some people might not want a house and do that. But I think we need to put a really spotlight on it where they're being built and make sure that it's the right spot to build it. We have postage stamps in this town, and people just want to drop in, 50, 60, 70, 130 units on a postage stamp. 40B it's not, it's a weaponized way for a developer to make some money. So that the taxes, and I'm gonna throw this one out because I know the answer on this one. Perry Place, the developer is gonna pay like $400 and something thousand on taxes. But he's gonna be making $5.9 million a year. So if it was, affordable, how about he's not making so much money and let somebody in there for $1,300 or $1,200? The only one that's getting rich on 40B is the developer. Thank you.
I will ask you to repeat the question.
Man, I have to go back to this. I know I changed.
Number 5.
I know I changed the language on it, so, hold on.
I can read it. I have it
Yeah,
right here.
thanks.
Okay.
I changed the language on it.
No
so-
worries at all. So, Mr. Carpenter, how do you plan to engage with, I'm sorry, how do you plan to engage with residents and solicit their input on critical issues facing the town, such as business licensing, infrastructure projects, public policy decisions? And also, what would be your approach in regards to the 40B projects?
Okay. So one thing that is very important for any resident to know is, on the town website, every single member of the Board of Selectmen's number is on there. If you have a concern, you do not have to wait for an invitation to talk to us. We actually asked for the job, and we actually want to hear from you. Because as a member of any board, I'm looking at several of them who have served many, many years here. We all know there are 5 of us, there are 7 of us, there might be 9 of us. None of us have all the answers. We need the residents, we need a diversity of opinion, and we actually want to hear from the residents. So job 1 is, my number is right there. We all have email addresses. You're more than welcome to communicate with us that way. Also, I'm out in the community, quite a bit. If you see me in the supermarket and you have a question, stop me. I may not be able to answer it right then, but I can get your number, I can get your contact information, and I will certainly, you may not like the answer you get back, but I can at least promise you'll get an answer. Something that the board is working on, and I was proud to see it again. Prior to COVID, we used to have the Flagtown flyer pretty much in every business in town. And COVID shut down, and you can't find a piece of it. Well, now we have some. You can always do it online, but a lot of people don't think to do these things online. They don't want to be online. They spend their day online. So making sure that at Town Hall, which if you stop downstairs, you're going to see there's a desk, we have all sorts of good information that's going on. The school department has been great with, we send over as a community. On the town side, the superintendent sends out with her communications to the parents, everything that the town would like the parents and the residents to know. So I think we need to continue that relationship. We also need to make sure that at our libraries, town hall, schools, anywhere that we're touching on town government, that there is something there that is going to tell you whether it's the Auburn account, which will tell you everything from who got hired to what grants we got, and it comes out quarterly. So that's a great thing. Again, you can access it online if you choose. You can access the Flagtown flyer online if you so choose. But we need to do more outreach. We need electronic signs that are mono-focused. If we're having town meeting, if we're having an event, we've had a housing production plan which goes directly to 40B. We want to know from the residents what you think. Well, if you don't know that we're having a meeting, you can't show up. You can't fill out the form. So we can't have an all-digital, and that's what I feel we've gotten to is we assume that everybody lives on their phones or on their computers, and many of us do. But we also want to make sure that if I just happen to be sitting at the library waiting for my book, and I see a survey, I can pick it up, I can fill it out and return it. We have to have a multi-pronged approach to communicate what's going on in our community so that the residents are aware and they can communicate with us. That's so important. As far as 40B, I touched on we need to start looking at LIP. I agree, 40B is a well-intentioned policy that, frankly, as it's been implemented, is not good. The state has not listened to the residents. They've categorized them as NIMBYs. When, you build a school, you can't build a school, and you can't always build an addition every time you get new students. You can't always hire new teachers or more road crews or other things. So you can say those are NIMBY issues, but actually they're practical issues that every community in the Commonwealth faces. So instead of categorizing a community that might have honest reservations about these developments, the other thing that, we've had these three, and they're all rentals. I don't particularly like that we're not giving residents or prospective residents the chance to own a home. That is the American dream. And, affordable housing is great, I support it, but it's also time limited. But if I sell you that house and I deed restrict it, so when you sell that unit, it goes to somebody else who falls within the criteria, that's keeping it affordable forever. And that's really what you need. And it's also giving people an opportunity to own in their community and have the security of not having to worry, is my landlord going to have to raise the rates? I own my home. I can potentially manage what every homeowner manages, the ups and downs of the economy. But if we're just going to have rentals, that's not good for long-term affordable housing, in my opinion. So I would try to get these developers to do ownership versus rental.
Thank you.
May I touch one more
Sure.
thing on that? And again, let's make one thing perfectly clear. 40B is not low-income housing. A lot of people mistake that, and it is not low-income housing. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and just the last question of the night regarding the vision of the town, not the last question total, just regarding the vision of the town. So with growing concern of migrants moving into our town and throughout Massachusetts, what steps would you take to mitigate any associated costs to the residents, taxes, space in schools, et cetera? And now I'll start with you, Mr. Carpenter.
Sure. So first of all, they're not migrants. Migrants are people who might be farm workers who come in and serve under a certain classification of immigration. The people who are currently in town were not here by the choice of the town. We were not asked. We were not consulted in any way. We were told by the government above us that we needed to house these people. We want them to be treated humanely. We want to make sure that, you know, if, God forbid, I was taken from here and dropped into a country that spoke something other than English, I would hope that we would do everything we could to make sure that they're successful. Again, this is a force well beyond a Board of Selectmen. What we can do, as we can always do as elected leaders and as residents of any community, is advocate at the state level and the federal level. We have a broken immigration system. The federal government has totally abdicated its role. It's harmed businesses to the extent of the Cape currently has difficulty getting employees. There aren't enough employees, Native American-born people, to service the hotels. So why aren't we accepting these people for several months? On top of the fact that if you actually looked at what the INS charges businesses, like 10 grand to sponsor somebody, it's a money-making endeavor for the federal government. So I'm somewhat puzzled that they're usually pretty interested in separating people from their money. So I would think that this would be something that they would be concerned about. These individuals need a lot of help. The state so far has supported these. From what I understand from the town manager, there's been no commitment by the state to continue that level of support. So the reality is, as with anything else, if they're a resident of our community, we need to educate them. We need to make sure that the roads are clear. We need to do everything, which we're going to do anyways. So we need to treat anybody in our community humanely. We have to advocate at the state and federal level for support for these things. But let's face it, with the trillions of dollars in debt that the federal government has, we can't keep looking to others to pay bills because they don't have the money. They've been borrowing money for generations. We need to start seriously prioritizing our economy and making sure that we have workers here. And we need these individuals, as Canada is doing right now. They're aggressively getting these individuals because their population is down. They need services. They need qualified people. We need to make sure that we're not losing out, and then our economy will be in serious trouble.
Thank you. And again, Mr. Largess, with the growing concern of migrants moving into our town and throughout Massachusetts, what steps would you take to mitigate any associated costs to the residents, taxes, school space, et cetera?
Well, again, like Mr. Carpenter said, they didn't choose to be here. They were thrown on a plane, dropped off, put on a bus, and say, here you go. They didn't say, this is where you're going to live to cook. You're not going to go. We have some of the children in school. The state, if I'm not mistaken, is reimbursing the town for the use of the schools and the teachers. But we need to train them. We need to school them. We need to get them to speak English and do the jobs and want the jobs. You can lead a horse to water, but doesn't mean the horse is going to drink. These people have to want, and I think if they don't want it and they just want to be lazy, then the state needs to look at that and come up with some new ideas. I know I wouldn't want to be in their positions, just drop someplace and, again, throw it on a bus and say, here you go. So I think it costs, I don't know what it would cost the town, but we need to school the parents, the adults, as well as the children, so they can fend for themselves. I believe the state put a time limit on, 7 months, the governor said the other day. I don't know what's going to happen at the end of the 7 months, but that's how I take on that. We need to school them so it's not, and teach them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Largess. The next few questions are on taxes. So, first question, do you support moving to a single tax rate? Why or why not? And do you believe the split tax rate has been beneficial to the town to this point?
I'm first. Good. Well, I campaigned on maintaining the split tax rate. I have not backed away from that. I'm currently the only member of the board who has consistently said we need to pay attention to competitiveness, which I think we have. When we started moving the factor back, we were at a factor of 158. So if you go to any of the gateway communities, they're at 175. Is it any wonder that their economies are falling apart? They're overtaxing people. We're now at a factor of 109. We have given relief. And every year, whether we've moved the factor or we haven't moved the factor, the residential property owner has seen a rise in their taxes, and the commercial and industrial has seen a reduction. So we're doing what we are supposed to be doing. But the reality is, if we want to maintain our infrastructure, if we want to continue to provide services, we cannot continue to treat businesses and residents the same. Businesses don't treat each other the same. They charge one rate for commercial. Go to any bank, try and buy an apartment building as an investment. They're going to charge you a higher rate of interest than if you're an owner occupied. So everything that I've ever heard since I got involved in government is we have to run government more like a business. Well, fundamentally, if you are operating a business and you are operating it out of a commercially zoned area, you are making money off of that, whereas a resident is not making money off of their home. So we need to, yes, we need to be mindful of competition, but we also have to be mindful that infrastructure doesn't get repaired by itself. It doesn't get expanded by itself. It needs revenue. And the reality is we need to maintain the business rate at whatever level it is, but I will never support a single tax rate. And I've campaigned on it for 10 years, and I'm not going to stop. But what I do say is for those small businesses, we need to address the small business tax credit. If you're a renter in a multi-tenant building, you don't see any relief from that. It goes to the property owner, if you're lucky enough to even get it. Because as the law is written now, if any of those businesses are valued at more than $1 million, which, you know, in 1990, $1 million was a lot more than it is today, one of those businesses over $1 million, none of you benefit from the tax break. And that just is fundamentally wrong. If you're a small business owner, if the majority of that congregate development has, under whatever the amount, I personally think we should be $5 to $10 million. That's realistically a small business in this day and age. If the majority are there, and it should go directly to the business, not to the property owner, because typically in town, we use what's called a triple net lease, which means if you're renting, all of the expenses, including the property taxes, are on you, the tenant. The business owner doesn't pay any of those. The property owner doesn't pay any of those expenses. So why are they getting the tax benefit when you're the one maintaining the building, you're the one paying the taxes? You should be getting that. So I definitely want to see us work through the state delegation, and again, all 5 of us currently serving are in support of this. It's going to take time. It took a long time for the board in the 90s to get the legislature and the governor to sign it, but, you know, you don't give up. You don't take the first no. I forget what the rest of the question is. I think I'm rambling.
I think you covered it all.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Largess, do you need the question repeated?
Just a little bit of it.
All right.
Kind of.
Do you, do you support the move to a single tax rate? Why and why not? And do you believe the split rate has been beneficial to the town to this point?
Well, I do support not a complete even tax rate. A little bit more for the business, but not gouging them. We want to get businesses into town. We don't want to push them out of town. So hopefully we could attract more businesses, which would drop the residential rate. I read an email, an article from the fire chief about treating town government as a business. And it was last year, and I apologize, I can't remember the whole thing, but it compared the two. And it was actually a really, really good essay, paper, however, report. So I do support something. I think we need to bring it down a little and try and attract more businesses. And like Mr. Carpenter said, the tax credit has to go towards the business, not towards the real estate that the business is in. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I'll start with you, Mr. Largess. What measures could you take to mitigate any potential hardships faced by residents or businesses as a result of a potential increase in the tax rate?
Hardships to who?
To the residents.
Residents
Or to
or-
businesses, both, in the case that the rate were to change or increase in this case.
Well, again, I think we have to shop local. Everybody got used in COVID, just pick up the phone or get on the computer and hit Amazon. Well, you're driving the businesses out of town. Keep the money in town. Keep the businesses in town going. I don't know if I could really even answer that, because we're not gonna, say, oh geez, your taxes went up. We're sorry, because we know that the town's not gonna give your money back. It ain't gonna happen. I don't know of anybody that would. It's kind of a tough question. I don't have a better answer for that. I apologize.
No, fair enough. I appreciate it. And Mr. Carpenter, how would you potentially mitigate any potential hardships?
So I think we need to, pressure the state. They have not increased the income limits, again, similar to the small business tax credit. We're living in a 21st century idea that somebody who has $30,000 in income is somehow rich. I don't know many places in this country that you're going to have that level of income and be able to sustain yourself. So I think we need to look at both at the local level, because we are maxed out. So in the last 5 years, we've gone to town meeting. Thankfully, as a board, we drove the process to increase those limits of what we can give, but the state has, we're at the limit. We can't give anymore. So we need to expand those. We need to really look at the income level, and we should be tying the income level to inflation, because it's absolutely ludicrous that you're going to have to wait to get somebody's attention. With everything going on in the world today, to get anybody's attention for more than 5 minutes, let alone budget season at the legislature, good luck. We have to really start looking at what we're doing. And again, with the small business tax credit, I think that will assist those people who are struggling. We also have to be good stewards of the money we have. For 10 years, we haven't taxed to the max. I think that's where, look around us in the other communities, I know I get to hear about it at least once a year, they tax to 2.5% every year. And let me tell you, they don't apologize when they do it. We have consistently since 2008, and that's going back a couple of boards, that have said, no, don't tax to the max. So my opinion has always been, government should only take out of the private economy what we need to provide the services that the community wants and needs to support. The reality is, most of our budget, much like the state budget and the federal budget, is not discretionary money. That is required spending. So there are limits to what we can do with budgets. But those are two concrete things that I'd like to see us do. We can look at the fees that we charge. You know, at one point, Governor Patrick said a fee is a tax. Well, we have a multitude of fees that are not subject to 2.5. Our budget is. So why are we allowing fees to, you know, grow like, you know, trees in a forest? And we say, well, you know, we look at the other communities and we say, well, you know, Oxford is charging this, so we'll charge this, or we'll charge. What are our costs? You know, the other thing is we now have 3 engineers. When I got elected to the planning board, we had 1. And the reason we hired a town engineer was to do plan reviews. They don't do plan reviews, not a one of them. We charge upwards of $5,000 as a community for a plan to be reviewed. That is a concrete area that we should, if we have 3 engineers on staff, we need to find time for plan review. And I think you're going to get a better plan review by somebody in-house, because on Wednesday morning, after they've just developed it, their phone's going to ring. If you hire XYZ engineering firm from who knows where, you're probably not going to get to talk to them on the phone. But a public employee who's right up the road, you don't even have to call them. You can stop by the office. So I think we need to get back to having those plan reviews. $5,000, that's an awful lot of money. For somebody who's trying to start a business or expand a business, that's a lot of money. And I don't necessarily know that the level of review that we get as a community, having served on 2 land use boards, I'll be honest with you, I think we got a better read by the town engineers that we've had. So I would work to eliminate that.
And Mr. Carpenter, we're going to start with you with the next question, which, given your comprehensive answer in the last one, you've probably addressed a lot of it, but given the discussions on the fiscal year 2025 budget and the potential impact of reduced state aid, how do you plan to balance fiscal responsibility with meeting the town's needs and obligations? And with that being said, can you outline your strategy for prioritizing budget allocations to essential services, infrastructure projects, and community events, especially considering potential funding limitations?
Yeah, well, that's a question that I think is almost unanswerable, because the Board of Selectmen doesn't have a budgetary role. We can certainly advocate, and we do, but I'm not going to dodge the question. The important thing, and I think the town has done a consistently good job in the time that I've been on the board, and I take no credit for it. It's a team sport and a team effort. It's not just the Board of Selectmen, it's the Finance Committee, it's the town meeting, it's the various boards and committees and staff. They don't ask for things that they don't need. We don't have an abundance of things that aren't practical and going to save us money. So I would continue to focus on, let's be practical, let's set priorities, let's make sure we're maintaining our infrastructure. You know, we've had the, I forget what they call it, I think it's the Facilities Committee. It's a 3-member committee, you know, a 3-member group, which now we've lost somebody. We have a lot of buildings in town, we have a lot of projects in town, and we can't keep delaying projects because we want to save money for the residents. I would like to see us expand that, because it's going to save us money by having people on the payroll doing the work, doing the pay, you know, painting, replacing windows. It exponentially saves us money than having to go out. It costs money to go out on bids. It costs money and time to do that. If we have an in-house staff, which again is more accountable to us. If I hire XYZ company, I mean, when we built the new middle school, the HVAC didn't work. We had to fix it ourselves. We had to then go after the person. If you got somebody working for you, you don't have to go after them. You have to walk down the hall and make sure it's fixed. So we need to look at practical areas where we can save money for the residents and the businesses, because if we keep those costs down and we look at our fees, if we look to expand some of these exemptions, I think people are going to be a little more comfortable.
Thank you. Ms. Lodis, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, Mr. Carpenter answered it 2 questions ago, I believe, pretty much everything. You gotta give me a bone and let me answer one.
Mrs. Goodrich can tell you, the most dangerous thing is a microphone and Dan Carpenter in the same room.
I've been biting my tongue.
No, and I agree with Dan Carpenter. We have to watch, we have to look, and a lot of in-house things that we save. We have the in-house mechanic now for the fire department. We lost our in-house contractor. He retired and moved south. I think we need to look at them and, those positions and try to get them back. That we are losing. We have to plan ahead because we are going to have people retiring. Your DPW is some older people in the DPW. There's some older people in the whole town. It's time for the older generation to enjoy their retirement, and let's get the new people in there, and let's get them trained, and let's save the town some money. Let them do the work. They had mentioned DPW director the other night in the select board that they're going to have to hire an outsource to button up some small projects. And Cartman hit the nail on the head. We need to do it in-house and save money. Yes, it's going to be another employee, but that employee is going to replace the employee before him. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, we'll start with you, Mr. Largess. One way to reduce the tax burden overall is to increase new growth. Would you, and in what way, as a select board member, work with town staff and other interested stakeholders to support reasonable development, including housing and commercial bases in the town?
Well, I've kind of taken the role on myself already. I've gone to different companies. I went down and I visited a store called Runnings in Putnam, Connecticut, and I loved it so much. I turned around and I called the CEO, and I had 3 meetings with him about coming to Auburn and to look for a building for him. Realistically, the only building that was suitable for him was the old Toys R Us building. I have talked to the mall manager about getting like an Apex into Sears and different things like that. And the problem is Sears will not relinquish the lease. And it's killing us because we're not attracting the people to the mall. So I've taken it upon myself to do these things already, and I'm not getting paid for it, but I just want to see my town thrive. I really do. If we don't have anything in town, who's going to want to live here? We have the police and the fire departments who are second to none. You pick up the phone, they're there. And record time, I think I would have to say. So that's I just keep working with the boards and the town administrator and see what businesses we can get into this town.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Carpenter, would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure.
All right, no problem. So one way to reduce the overall tax burden is to increase new growth. Would you, and in what way as a select board member, work with town staff and other interested stakeholders to support reasonable development, including housing and commercial bases in the town?
I've always hated the word reasonable. Every time a lawyer says something to you, they say, well, what would a reasonable person do? Well, I've read the laws you've written, and I can't even understand them, so clearly, what person is reasonable and another person is too much, you're never going to find that happy medium. That's why it's happy. Nobody can find it. I think we have, as a community, tried to do this. There's limits to what the town can do. I mean, we can look at zoning, and we have, and we've made adjustments to zoning. But if there's something that a business community wants, they need to be part of the solution too. Again, you don't need to wait to be invited. If you have a good idea, come in and talk to us about it. Again, I go back to, I've done this for a very long time, but I was not on the mountain. I didn't have to take off the sandals. Nobody gave me any tablets. I had to do the best that I could with the information I had. I listened to and learned from board members. I listened and learned from town staff. You know, I've certainly tried to educate myself by watching numerous meetings in other communities to see, are we doing it right? Are they not doing it right? What are they doing that we're not doing? But the reality is, this is the work of everybody. It's not one person. We all have to want this. So I would say we can always look at zoning. You know, that's really what the town can do. We can look at the exemptions to try and see what we can do there. We can manage our budget so that we're not taking more out of the private economy that we don't need to, so that we're making this an attractive place to people, for people to organize a business. But I mean, the sign's out. I don't think it's a mystery to anybody in the business community. Auburn has been open for business since well before I was born, and it has not stopped being open for business. And the people who have served it have always been interested in hearing what is needed so that we can get better, or we can do something to give us a competitive advantage. So again, I go back to, you know, it's a team sport, it's a team effort. A lot of people have a lot more intelligence than is in this body, and has a lot more experience that's in this body. So share with us, and we'll try to get it done.
Thank you both very much. Appreciate it.
So we're winding down here. We have 2 questions left. Mr. Carpenter, you're up first again. And of course, we have a question on water.
Water.
Water. We listen to the residents. So, knowing that the town has 3 water districts, the quality of town water has been a topic of discussion amongst residents for years. While the town of Auburn does not own any of the water districts and cannot improve the quality, what actions can the town and/or residents take to address this long-standing issue?
Well, first and foremost, while they are not a town body, they are elected. So you can go to their meetings, and I can almost assure you that you will freak most people out. I won't mention the school district that I went to, because they invited all the Board of Selectmen to go to their budget meeting. I was the only one to show up, and we've never been invited since. And I'm like, it's a public budget. Why are you afraid of anything? But honestly, it's talk to your water commissioners. They're reasonable people. They're not this nebulous body. None of us who serve in town government are strangers to anybody. We live here. We shop in the same places. I don't have children, but many of the other board members do. Your kids play on their sports teams and other, extracurricular activities. We're not unknown to you, and neither are any of the water commissioners. So call them. I've had calls. A lady was getting billed weirdly twice a year, but it was never the same time. So what did I do? I called the water district. I talked to the water superintendent. What can we do? I've talked to the water commissioners. I've talked to at least one that I used to work for. They're doing everything they can. How the water, what is the makeup of the water, the chemical makeup, they can only do so much to soften it and ameliorate it. I mean, that's just reality. That's science you can do, and they've done everything they can do. But having said that, don't take my word for it. Go see them. Talk to them. They live in town. They have to. That's why they're on the ballot. And ask them these questions, because they know a lot more about water than I'll ever know. And again, I think if you show up and you ask questions, just like if you show up and ask the Board of Selectmen at our meetings, we're going to get you an answer. Again, you may not like the answer you get. It may not be the answer you hoped for. But as public officials, our main principal job is to listen, research, ask more questions, and get answers. We don't want people to not feel like they can't talk to us. I can't imagine anybody who puts their name on a ballot who would ever at least admit openly to that. I would hope not anyways, because that just is absolutely, why the hell are you doing it? If you don't want to be of service to your community and to the residents, why are you doing it? And I think these people are doing it for the very same reason I got into it all these years ago. And I think they're reasonable people, and they will tell you the truth. So the first thing is, reach out to the people that you elect, talk to them. If you don't like their answer, or if they tell you it's too much money and they need to go to the state, I know a certain person sitting at the table who might know somebody they can talk to, and I know another person who they might be able to talk to on the other side of the house that might be able to get them some money to do some things so that the ratepayers aren't getting. I mean, some of these projects are ridiculously expensive. I mean, the Upper Blackstone, the federal permits just for that, I mean, millions of dollars a year just for the permit to send waste there. It's not a cheap thing to try and find solutions to something, but again, the water is a problem. We all know it. Anybody who's lived in town has replaced their plumbing more than once. They've replaced their appliances multiple times. But is there a scientific way for us to stop it? From what I understand, no. But let's not stop trying or asking the questions.
Mr. Largess, I feel like I should ask you another question because, but I don't, I have to follow the procedure, so, same question.
Like Mr. Carpenter said, the Auburn Water District and the other, what are the other, Elm Hill, and I apologize, I have well water, so I don't see any of this. But I could tell you, door knocking, I did run into a bunch of people who, that's a major concern for them, is the water. And one of them even asked me, is there something that they could rent or purchase from the water department as a filtration system in their home? Well, when I worked for the city water department, I got the pleasure of going up and actually seeing how the Worcester Water Department filtration worked. And I seen it in the 5 different stages where the water is 100% pure, there is nothing in it, and it's not something that would taste really good. I know the chlorine and stuff in the water that they put in it to purify it, but maybe the town's water departments could look towards a filtration department. I mean, they do have well water, and I don't really know how it's treated. Again, I have well water myself, and I don't treat my water, and I don't have any of the issues other than a dishwasher that I think we've replaced 3 times. I said, and that's it. 3 times, you're done. We're washing my hand. I wish I could have a better answer for that, but maybe a filtration system for the town residents is something that could be approached. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, and just 2 closing questions. I'll start and Doreen will finish. Is there a question you wish we had asked that you would have had an opportunity to answer or see a fellow candidate have an answer?
Oh, I'm sorry, that was,
Oh,
I thought
sorry.
Dan was going first, my apology.
Yeah, that's okay.
So, can you repeat that?
Yeah, no
Is there a
problem.
question I would
Yeah,
ask myself?
Yeah, let me repeat it, no problem. Is there a question you wish we had asked that you would have had an opportunity to answer or see a fellow candidate have to answer? Another question that, to learn more about, or to talk, yeah.
Well, I've had the pleasure of going to different fundraisers, and Doreen has been nice enough to bring snacks and munchies, and I'll bet you if she brought them for the selectmen's meetings, they would probably pack the house. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen that way. No, I really don't, and I think you folks have touched base on pretty much everything, and I thank you for it.
Thank you, and you're welcome.
Honestly, my head is so full of wool right now, I can't think of anything that's going to come up, but, you know, I've
Okay,
had the
and-
pleasure of serving with Mrs. Goodrich, and in addition to making great snacks,
Yes.
she's a hardworking volunteer for the community, and her absence from the board is noticeable. So the biggest thing that, you know, any of us want to do is serve our community and give back. And, you know, so I hope everybody goes who can goes to vote on the 21st and fills in the circle next to the candidate that they think will best serve them, because that's essentially, it's in your hands, not ours, who represents you.
So you just touched on it briefly, but finally, in closing, what would be your final message to the voters?
Well, thank you for allowing me to serve. I've had the privilege of serving on both elected and appointed committees, and I've learned a great deal. So, you know, I hope that I can continue that education. If I live to be 800, I'd still be learning. Because there's always something, as much as people say, you know, they say, I'm going to be ready day one. Nobody's ready at day one, because you don't know what's going to land on your desk on day one, or day 5, or day 20. And as we touched on earlier, the state and the federal environment impacts the local environment, and yet we, as a relatively small community, can't really do a lot other than advocate, which I think the board has tried to do and other committees have tried to do, to make things better. And I think that's, you know, the goal, is to make things better and to be available and to say thank you to the people who have helped you along the way. And there are so many, some of them, I've been doing it so long, have sadly passed. But I remember the lessons they imparted to me, and I try to carry those voices with me as I make decisions every day. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Mr. Largess, your final message to the voters?
Snacks for the selectmen's meetings every other Monday. But no, I'm not a implant in this town like Mr. Carpenter. We both share. We both grew up in this town. Third generation in this town. I've seen it from when I was little to having coffee with my father at the coffee mug. I've seen it spinning around on the stools that used to be in Town Pizza, when Steve used to give us a little drink of Hawaiian Punch when we were there, or something else. I've seen it grow from small to larger. I mean, when I grew up in high school, I graduated in 1986, but I used to ride my horse to the Auburn High School, tie it up at the dumpster behind Friendly's, do my shopping, and ride it home. I think those days are long gone, and it's sad to say. But I would appreciate your vote. I will always be accessible all the time. Please refrain from late nights and early mornings. But yeah, I have emails, and my phone number is listed. And like Mr. Carpenter said, there will be a town email. And please approach me. You know, I'm like Mr. Carpenter. I'll talk to anybody and listen to exactly what you want to say. And you can ask a question. I'll give you the answer. You might not like the answer. But then if I don't know the answer, I will get it for you, one way or another, if I have to call Mr. Carpenter to get the answer.
You'll be blocked.
You're trying to say it, a lot of questions.
Let's keep it civil here, folks.
No, that's about it. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to turn it back over to,
All right, well, thank you very much. I'd like to applaud Jeff McElroy and Doreen Goodrich for tonight's services. Great. I'd like to also thank Tristan, and forgive me for chopping your last name up.
Liberty.
La Liberty, for working behind the scenes, wherever you are out there. Thank you. And also love to thank Danny Largess and Daniel Carpenter for tonight. Thank you for coming, and thank you for just being a part of this town and your years of commitment and service. So, thank you. This concludes.
I'd like to say one more thing. Thank you for your service, Tristan, and please come home safe.
There you go. Thank you. This concludes tonight. We'd like to thank again everybody. I'll leave you all with this. I said it last year, and I'll say it again. It's not about who's right, who's wrong, who's on the right, who's on the left. It doesn't matter, all right? We all need to work together for one common goal, and that is to do what's best for the town of Auburn and the residents who reside in this wonderful town. Life is short. let's make it the best, and let's create a legacy that our children's children's children will have for the future of Auburn. That's pretty much it. So thank you very much. We wish you the best. Best of luck to all the candidates out there, and get out there and vote. It's the only way you can make a difference. Please vote. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too. Pleasure.